Today we're going to talk about how to take care of a bearded dragon. Let's start with what they do in the wild. These arid environments often experience hot days but cold nights. As the spring sun rises, bearded dragons wait for the air temperatures of the day to start warming up their bodies. They will then begin to actively bask in the sunshine, while staying hidden until their bodies hit around 26 degrees at roughly 9:30 to 10 in the morning. After reaching this point, they emerge to sit in the bright sun and use their back like a solar panel to absorb as much of the sun's energy as possible by facing themselves away from the sun. They turn darker to do so as effectively as possible. Often the brightest patches of sun are the most energy rich and the most desirable at this time. They need to bask in the sun to warm up and get their core temperature to an optimal 36.3 degrees Celsius. During this process, the UV light is hitting their skin and is causing cholesterol in their skin to be converted into the start of the vitamin D3 cycle, allowing the calcium in their diet to be absorbed by the gut. Once they do this, they then move out of the bright sunny patch and start eating. Or males might look for a good vantage point to display to any onlooking females, whilst positioning their body in a way to reduce as much of sunshine hitting their bodies as possible. Males that do get too hot jump down and press their bellies into the cool sand to expel a lot of unwanted heat. The spring rains and increasing day lengths have stimulated a lot of fresh growth in herbaceous vegetation, and flowers bloom. Insects and fly populations boom alongside it. The perfect feeding time for bearded dragons is now. Rich vegetation gives the bearded dragons much needed calcium. Once the air temperatures in the middle of the day get to the point where bearded dragons don't need to keep basking to maintain their optimal body temperature, they then move to shaded positions. After the peak of midday, when bearded dragons might have fed or air temperatures begin to drop, bearded dragons will then come out and bask in the sun for a second time to help them digest and keep some warmth for the cold night ahead. By the end of the night, all bearded dragons have returned to their shallow springtime burrows before nighttime temperatures drop to as low as freezing on some nights. It's now summertime and air temperatures are warmer than ever before, and the 27-degree hot night from the day before is really felt this morning. The bearded dragons only briefly need to bask for around 10 to 20 minutes or so if they get lucky with a meal. The sun's rays are intense and air temperatures are an all-time high. Reliable amounts of food are scarce and plant matter has all but disappeared. The bearded dragons are sheltering from the sun, staying cool and avoiding basking for the most part. They don't want to raise their metabolism to need food that they won't find. As night drops, there's not a male to be seen, but females remain out, pressing their stomachs into the rocks and roads that are still warm from the day's sun. As night falls, the dragons prepare to sleep on top of bushes and in trees, where the now active nocturnal snake population will have more trouble sneaking up on them. At the end of autumn, day hours are shortening, temperatures are dropping, and winter is looming. The dragons begin to digging deeper Brumation burrows into the red sands that are several feet deep. These burrows remain at stable temperatures around 15 degrees Celsius, whilst the surface experiences the bitter cold. The bearded dragons sleep through this time in a hibernation-like state. But on the occasional sunny spell in the middle of winter, the dragons will wake and bask at the mouth of their burrows to absorb as much of the warmth as they can before going back to sleep, until the air temperatures of spring rouse them and the active season starts all over again. What they do in the wild offers us clues on how to best take care of them in our homes. Bearded dragons have lots of space in the wild, so it's really important that we offer them space in our homes. I would recommend a 120-gallon tank. Dimensions wise, that's 4 by 2 by 2 feet. That is absolutely great for a baby bearded dragon, and it's the bare minimum for an adult bearded dragon. Your adult bearded dragon can get up to 2 feet in length, meaning that if it's 2 foot and the enclosure is 4 foot, that means its entire body can be under the lights or out of the lights, in the sun, in the shade, just like in the wild. And yes, you can put a baby bearded dragon straight into that size tank. I have worked in stores for years, and we've always just put baby bearded dragons straight into that size tank, straight from the egg. Remember, a baby in the wild can run that distance in seconds. It's absolutely nothing to them. Some people might say that that size tank is too big for a baby because they might struggle to heat that size of space. But I'm going to teach you how to do it, and it's really easy. Now, lots of you have probably bought a 40-gallon tank as a starter kit, and that's okay. I have got you. I've got a video that teaches you how to make the most of that space until you you can save up for that big shiny upgrade. You can find 120 gallon tanks online. Everything you need from this video is listed down below. Now that we've covered housing, let's move on to the most important topic, and that is lighting. In the wild, bearded dragons will bask in the sun, so we need to give them special lamps so that they can bask in our homes. You are going to need 3 things: a heat lamp, a UVB lamp, and an LED light. Now, a UVB light is a must-have, Bearded dragons need vitamin D to be able to make use of the calcium that they eat. And bearded dragons have been scientifically proven to be really bad at using vitamin D in food, meaning it has to be made by their skin under UVB light. Now, without it, bearded dragons will get sickly and look like this and get metabolic bone disease. Now, what you want to get is the tube style UVB like this and not the compact ones like this, because these compact ones are way too weak for your bearded dragon. So the tube ones like this. The 24 watt Zoomed Reptisun 10.0 lamp, the 10.0 and not the 5.0, I repeat, not the 5.0 because that bulb is too weak. And you put that in the 24-inch Zoomed terrarium hood, and that is a great bet. Now you want to set it up so that your bearded dragon can bask 9 inches below your UVB bulb for the perfect amount of UVB. Now remember, that's for this exact bulb for my exact calculations. The strength of UVB is measured on an index, and that's called the UV index. Now the strength changes and the index changes based upon how strong your bulb is and the distance from the bulb. I have done the exact maths for you in this example, in this exact recommendation, but if you want to learn how to pick the right bulb in any given scenario from any brand, I have a dedicated video just for you. Do not use the Thrive branded enclosure from PetSmart. The reason why is their mesh screen on top is so thick that it blocks most of the UVB from getting through. It blocks it by 60%. Now most other brands will sit around 35% blockage, and that's what I've used in my calculations. So if you're going to use the Thrive brand, find a way to mount your UVB on the inside, on the underside of the mesh, or don't use it at all. Now these bulbs will last an entire year, then after a year you need to buy a brand new one and replace it. The reason why is that these UVB bulbs degrade over time and their strength gets weaker and weaker and weaker until it's too weak for your bearded dragon. And typically that happens around a year in, so at that point we change for a brand new bulb. Now the next important bulb is the heat bulb. Now bulbs like this allow your bearded dragon to heat up just like in nature. Heat bulbs provide a type of energy that we commonly associate with heat, and that's called infrared A. This infrared A penetrates deep into your bearded dragon and allows your bearded dragon to properly warm up their core, just like they would sitting in the sun. A good bulb to use is the 100 watt Exoterra Intense Basking Spot. Now make sure that that's 9 inches away from where your bearded dragon will bask. The last bulb you're going to want is an LED spot lamp. Now that's going to crazily brighten up our tank. Now if you just have your heat bulb and your UVB lamp, it's very dark in your bearded dragon's tank. It might not appear that way to your human eyes that adjust, but it's very, very dark. These animals come from the Australian outback where it's really intense sunlight and it's very, very bright. Now brightening up your bearded dragon's basking spot will greatly positively impact your bearded dragon's health. They are way more active and way more alert. Now once you've got these 3 bulbs, what you're going to want to do is place them on one end of your enclosure, and that means you get a bright sunny patch for your bearded dragon to go bask in and a shaded patch for your bearded dragon to go into when they want to cool down, just like that story at the start of the video. Now you want to measure the surface temperatures in the basking spot to see how hot your basking spot is getting. To do this, you want to use a temperature gun. You point and shoot and it tells you how hot a surface is. The basking spot can be anywhere from 38 to 45 degrees Celsius or 100 to 110 Fahrenheit. A good trick is to measure the back of your bearded dragon whilst it's basking, again those same temperatures. This is a good way to make sure that the surface of your bearded dragon's scales isn't getting too hot and starting to cause a burn before your bearded dragon can warm up its core. Now this is one of the main ways that people's bearded dragons get burns. People let their bearded dragons get way too close to a basking lamp and their skin gets red hot and burns before the bearded dragon even feels it and realizes it, because their core is so cool and they haven't warmed up yet. Now a good indicator that your bearded dragon's basking area is set up correctly is your own bearded dragon's behaviour. Just like in nature, your bearded dragon should bask for around 25 minutes or so in the morning and then go about its day, and then maybe it comes back and has another bask in the afternoon. Now, if your bearded dragon just sits under the lights all day long, this can be a sign that your bearded dragon isn't able to warm up its core. Or on the flip side, if your bearded dragon avoids basking at all costs, this can be a sign that it's just too intense for your bearded dragon. So you can go and swap wattages in and out, up and down, and find this Goldilocks zone until you find that based upon your own bearded dragon's behaviour. You want to have these lights on during the day and then off at night so that your bearded dragon can go to sleep. You most likely won't need any heating at night time, as bearded dragons should cool down at night time to around 18 degrees or 64 Fahrenheit. Now, air temperature is totally different from basking surface temperature. You want your bearded dragon's daytime air temperature in the tank to be between 21 and 30 degrees Celsius or 70 to 86 Fahrenheit. You can measure this by using a thermometer placed in the shaded end of the tank so that you're not heating your thermometer with lights and raising it above the true air temperature in the tank. The humidity in the tank can be anywhere from 20 to 60%. Honestly, during the day it doesn't matter, and at night time you might even see it rise plus 70%. But don't worry, that's totally normal. Humidity cycles up and down like that, day and night, in nature too. That's totally normal. As long as your enclosure isn't constantly wet, you'll be absolutely fine. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the interior of your bearded dragon's tank. Substrate is what goes on the bottom of your bearded dragon's tank, and it's really important. Like I mentioned earlier in the wild, they use sands for digging burrows and for cooling off. So I recommend giving your bearded dragon a sand substrate. Now, there are a lot of different branded sands available to you. If you want cheap and effective, I recommend Play Sand, just from any hardware store, as it's really easy to keep clean, and the cool sand in the shaded end lets them press their bellies to cool off. However, it isn't very tough and it doesn't offer that resistance when your bearded dragon is digging, so it doesn't give them that form of exercise. If you're willing to spend the extra money, you can literally buy the exact sands that wild bearded dragons live on in the wild. This sand right here has been collected in the middle of Australia and exported in bags straight to you to buy for your pet bearded dragon. This wild sand actually holds the same ability to hold burrows like it would in the wild. It is way more expensive, but then again it is exactly what they live on in the wild, so you get what you pay for, I guess. It literally shows exactly where they collected from in Australia. That's mad. Whichever one you choose, just make sure that it's several inches deep for your bearded dragon. Now, you're going to want a sand scoop for sieving your bearded dragon's poop off the sand. Check and clean up any bearded dragon poop every day, and then once a month you can take out all the substrate, clean your enclosure and put fresh new substrate in the bottom. The other thing that you want to add besides substrate is hides and branches. Bearded dragons climb in nature, so give them plenty of logs to climb on and hides to rest in. Be sure to have enough that your bearded dragon has options, but then leave some space so that your bearded dragon has the space to move and run up and down as they wish. Now, I get a lot of my branches from outside. Trees like oak trees are really easy to identify and they're totally safe. What I do is I take these branches home, I soak them in the bath to drown any bugs that might be hiding inside, and then what I'll do is I'll leave them to bake in the sun under all that intense UV and leave them for a couple of days and bake them good. After that, they're good to use. You can also get all kinds of branches and hides made of cork from your pet store. Now, that's more expensive, but they are rot resistant. I recently had to soak and disinfect a lot of woods from my enclosures, and the wood that I got from outside went moldy, but the cork did not. So again, I guess you get what you pay for in that regard. The next topic to cover is diet. Baby bearded dragons eat more insects than an adult would, and an adult would actually eat more greens. Now, you only want to feed your baby bearded dragon around 5 insects around the size of the gap between its eyes every day. Then you can also feed them greens every day at the same time. Once your baby bearded dragon gets to around 30 grams, you can take that insect feeding to every second day. And if you notice that your baby bearded dragon is getting a bit fat, it's getting a bit pot-bellied, you can take that to every third day. Now, adults need far less than babies. Adult bearded dragons should have 5 insects or so around the size of a dubia roach 3 days a week. And then you give them a bowl of greens around the size of your bearded dragon's head 3 days a week as well. Now a good tip is if you're going to feed greens and bugs on the same day, feed the greens in the morning and the bugs later, because if you feed them bugs first, a bearded dragon might get full and then look at the greens and be like, nah. But if you feed them the greens first, magically they always find the way to find space for bugs even after they finish their greens. And if you notice your bearded dragon getting fatter, then you can decrease your portion size, or if you notice it losing a little bit of weight, you can increase your portion size. Manage your portion sizes alongside your bearded dragon's body condition. Make sure that you're rotating the types of bugs you're feeding, rotating the types of greens you're feeding, so that your bearded dragon gets a nice, healthy, balanced diet. Now I do have a video on everything they can eat, from greens to bugs, right here on this channel. Give your bearded dragon a bowl of water and refresh that bowl of water every day or so. Next up, let's talk about supplementation. To keep this simple, you're going to want a calcium powder and a multivitamin powder. Dust your bugs with calcium powder every time you feed your bearded dragon bugs. The reason we do this is bearded dragons need twice as much calcium in their diet as phosphorus. Now bugs have a lot of phosphorus, but very little calcium. So we put powder on them to make up for that. Make sure that the calcium powder you buy is just pure Ca, and it's not a multivite. Then once a week, on one of those days you're going to feed bugs, dust those bugs with a multivitamin powder. Zoomed's Reptivite is a good example. A multivitamin is a once a week job because it contains fat soluble vitamins. And what that means is you can over provide and you can overdose. So keeping it once a week, you're absolutely fine. The other topic is brumation. As you saw in the start of this video when we talk about the wild, bearded dragons will stick to the shade and cooler areas in the summer, and in the winter they'll dig deep burrows to hibernate. In the summer, your bearded dragon might barely even bask. Now that happens when the air temperature gets naturally very warm and your bearded dragon doesn't feel the need to bask. And that's okay, it's healthy, it's exactly what they do in the wild. Sitting in the same spot in the shaded end, but still awake and alert and looking back at you is exactly what estivation is, and looks totally different from brumation. Brumation is when our bearded dragons go into a deep sleep throughout the winter, and often that's for weeks at a time. As you start getting into the winter period or at the end of fall, your bearded dragon might start sleeping a lot, hiding away in hides, not really eating or eating very little, and that's okay, that's perfectly normal. Now what I advise is at the period going in around November, or if your bearded dragon does it earlier, that's absolutely fine. You'll take your lighting that would be on for 12 hours a day and you take it down to 6 hours. What this does is it naturally allows those air temperatures to drop and ease your bearded dragon into the brumation that they're going to do anyway, but it still offers them that intense same basking spot that they would have during the day. So after weeks your bearded dragon decides to wake up and go for a bask, that basking spot is exactly the same and there for them during the day. Then what they're likely to do is then go back to sleep again, and again, absolutely fine. Come the end of February, coming into March, going into spring, you can ramp that lighting back up to 12 hours a day and guide your bearded dragon out of that brumation. You don't really need to feed during this winter time as your bearded dragon's unlikely to eat anyway or be very sleepy. Just make sure that you don't leave any biting insects in the enclosure to bite your sleeping bearded dragon. What you can do is during this winter period is weigh your bearded dragon periodically, and if it's not losing more than 10% of its total body weight in rapid succession, then you're absolutely fine. So if your bearded dragon weighed 300 grams and it lost more than 30 grams really quickly, then what you would do is turn your lighting back up to 12 hours so that it gets hotter for longer, and then contact a vet. What this might be a sign of is an overabundance of parasites, and you can work with your vet to deal with that. But typically what you'll find is from start to finish of brumation during the winter, your bearded dragon doesn't lose much weight, if at all anything. My bearded dragon might lose like a couple of grams. Everything that you need from this bearded dragon shopping list can be found linked down below. If you like these types of bearded dragon care videos, there's plenty more coming, so subscribe for that, and I'll see you in the next video.